Hello, good evening. Welcome to our show tonight. Thank you for your support and thank you for all you do. If you haven't subscribed, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Check us out on all our social media platforms: Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. Tonight we are going to rant or talk about Nigerian education system. We keep seeing the children of elite graduating from foreign universities, from David Umahi, the Minister of Works, to Dr. Abati, the Arise News anchor, to several of them, to Baba Dati Ahmed, a whole bunch of them. And prior to this, we've seen a Kanduje, we've seen Erufai, we've seen, almost all of them, their children graduating from foreign university, especially in London. No wonder they don't pay attention, to us, including Wike, his son just graduated as well. No wonder they don't pay attention to Nigerian education system. So if their children keep graduating abroad, their children keep schooling abroad. So there's really no reason why they should be paying attention to Nigerian schools. And this is why, over and over we see ASU go to strike. In fact, Buhari said ASU was on strike for close to 10 months and Buhari did not shake. He did not shake because his children wasn't, schooling in Nigeria. His daughter, I think, from a university in London. Actually, his daughter and his son graduated from a university in London when he was the president. Maybe this explains why they don't pay attention to Nigerian education system. You go to school in Nigeria, you live the shores of Nigeria, and a lot of time you are not able to work with this certificate. They want you to get a further certificate, or they want you to take some kind of exams to prove, to prove yourself. And I'm not exactly sure what it will, take these people to pay attention to our educational system, improve it, and make it better for everybody. And maybe they can even think of reviewing their curriculum, because I can bet you that a lot of those curriculum, a lot of the things they are teaching, they are obsolete. They are no longer applicable to this world. The world has moved on, and those are the things we want to look at, this evening. What do you think, Amy?
Yeah, I don't think we can really tell someone where to train their children. If you have the means, especially if you're a private citizen, if you have the means and you want your children to study abroad, yeah, go for it. But as a political public office holder, if you are a public office holder in Nigeria and you're sending your children abroad to study, then you should be ashamed of yourself. You should be ashamed of yourself. If you're in a position of power today and you're sending your children to school abroad and you're not fighting for the people in Nigeria, you're not fighting for the teachers to get paid accordingly, you're not fighting to make sure that the children of the elite, especially in the political offices, are not schooling in Nigeria, then you should be ashamed of yourself. But if you're a private citizen, we can't really tell you how to spend your money. You've worked hard for it. And if you want to send your children to school abroad or wherever you want to send them, yeah, feel free to do that. But for a political office holder, I think it's a slap in the face of our education system. It's a slap in the face of the people because they have no incentive to fix the system. They have no incentive to fix the broken education sector because their children are not in the country. Their children are abroad. They're in, even if their children are in Nigeria, school in Nigeria, I bet you like 99% of them will send their children to a private university. So if you're in a position of power and you're not working to make the public university, public tertiary institutions in Nigeria to work, you're not making sure that the teachers have the resources they need to impart knowledge to the next generations, then it's a shame. And I don't know why you're in that office. Because the goal of the office is to serve the people. Even if you're not a minister of education, even if you're not a commissioner of education, at least you can speak up in those executive meetings where most people don't have access to get on the table and discuss the major challenges in the country. Then you should definitely be speaking up if you have that opportunity. If you're in the position of power, if the people who have voted for you, or the president, the governors, they've entrusted you with a position, then you need to be able to carry the water. You need to be able to perform and show some leadership and show that you care about the people. The ASU issue has been going on for a very long time. I mean, I would say 15, 16 years ago, when I was in university in Nigeria. I was lucky. Maybe we strike once. And since then, there's been multiple strikes. Some strikes were over 6 months, some less than 6 months. And at the end of the day, you're adding to the number of years these kids spend it in schools, and it's not really helping anybody. And at the end of the day, even when they graduate with a degree, there's no job. They don't have the means to start a business, to start any new ventures that can make money, bring them money, or for them to be able to hire other people. You know, the system is broken. The education system is broken. The economic system is broken. And our leaders are not interested in fixing it. So as a leader, as a political office holder today, if you're still sending your children abroad to school, then you need to either get out of the office or fix the system and bring your children back. But as a private citizen, you have the means. Yeah, send your children to wherever you want them to go to school. And the other side of it is, if you think about it, maybe they're using that opportunity to kind of get themselves a permanent resident in that country. Maybe they're sending their children not because they want them to, truly study, but for the children to, go get a permanent resident, and in the future maybe they can bring their parents in and have the legal status that they need, and they don't have to worry about Nigeria again. Is that what they're doing? Could that be the reason they're not interested in fixing the system and pushing the children abroad to be able to pave way for that? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I completely understand what you mean. I think it's a combination of several things. It could have been your last statement that they are just trying to get a secondary residency. That couldn't be far from the truth. I wouldn't even trust our politicians with anything. Anything is possible with them. But there is a bill, I think there's a bill before the National Assembly in the House of Representatives, sponsored by somebody from Abia State, essentially seeking to prohibit the civil servants and public servants from patronizing private schools and hospitals. I think at this point, I think Nigeria's problem is not law. Like, I think Nigeria probably has the most laws and bills passed to prohibit things. But oftentimes, I think the problem always boils down to the political will to make sure that those laws are enforced, adhered to, that people respect those laws, and they stay within the boundaries of that law. But in Nigeria, they always testing the limits of this law, always pushing it. Essentially, if you are well to do, you are above the law in Nigeria. But if you can barely feed yourself, barely feed your family, essentially the laws are for you. And the laws are meant to keep the downtrodden or the less, privileged. Is essentially meant to keep them, in perpetual poverty. But if you are wealthy, you can always escape the law. So, um, as much as I want to praise the person that is sponsoring the bill to make sure that if you are a public servant, that will probably include the politicians, civil servants, and stuff like that. As much as I want to praise the person, but I also believe that that bill, even though they pass it, they're not going to be able to enforce it because a lot of people are above the law in Nigeria. So I think our country, president, I think the president sometimes some of these things can actually start with the president. They can, lead by example. Our president can actually start by stop doing the medical tourism. He can actually start by prohibiting his cabinet or his ministers and all the people that he hired in government to stop patronizing going for medical tourism or going to educational tourism, sending their children abroad to school, because all of these things put a pressure on our FS. People are looking for FS to import goods and services, and these people are, using our FX to go train their children. So I think that is, one way to ensure that, they enforce this law. The president can just enforce it, can talk to his cabinets and then tell them that if we are staying here for 4 years or we are staying here for 8 years, I do not want to see any of your children graduating abroad. All your children has to be in the country, be schooling in the country, and be using the Nigerian, hospitals. I think that's one way to boost the Nigerian economy. I think that's one way to bring confidence to Nigerian services, especially the hospitals. people will begin to see reason, to use it. If they see the president constantly using our Nigerian hospitals and even his ministers and his cabinet, I think that will give, in fact, that will boost morale, that will motivate our medical professionals, and then I think it will have a domino effect on everything else down the line. So I think our president has a lot to do with this. He needs to show example. So it looks like he don't have children that are in college. His kids are grown, but he can just do it and then enforce it and make sure that none of his cabinet travels abroad for either medical or for education. We have schools in Nigeria. We have good schools in Nigeria: University of Calabar, UI, University of Ibadan, Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, Futo. We have a lot of good schools that their children can actually use. So I keep wondering why they keep, running to abroad. I'm not sure if, it's a competition, like they try to compete with each other and see, whose child will graduate from abroad or what. But I think it's senseless, is irresponsible, because if your children are not in the country, there is no reason to pay attention to the country.
Definitely, you raised a very good point. And laws that cannot be enforced, they're basically useless and a waste of time. You can write new laws, pass new bills every day of the year. But if you're not able to enforce it, if you're not able to push to see the law enforcement, hold these people accountable or find a way for that laws to be enforced, you're just wasting everyone's time. And the law will end up being for teachers that are public servants that can't afford to send their children abroad. So you're not really basically enforcing anything. They can't afford it anyway, so they can't really send their children abroad. But the ones that can afford it, the ones making all the money that can afford it, there's no way for you to enforce it. And if you're not interested in enforcing it, then you're basically people's time, and it's gonna be another law that is meant for the poor people instead of laws that should be applied to everyone equally, no matter your status in the public. And another reason I think this well-to-do people, especially the folks in politics, why they send their children abroad is because of pride. They value things that are made abroad. They don't really value local education. They don't believe that the system is working. They don't believe the children can learn locally. They don't believe the education system can bring the best out of their children. So they rather spend that extra money and send their children abroad. And it's a shame that they don't really care about the average Nigerian. You are here, you can fix the system, you have the power, you're not interested in it because it's gonna serve no value. It's gonna bring no value to you, or you're not gonna be able to make any money off of it. So until our leaders start to change their mindset, start to enforce the existing laws, enforce, making sure they hold themselves accountable, basically let everybody know, hey, my children will start going to school in Nigeria going forward. It doesn't have to be a word of mouth. You have to put an action to it. So if you start from the top, people at the bottom can see and they can make those changes. But the education system definitely needs to be fixed. The teachers needs to be paid well. The professors needs to be compensated fairly, and that way they can continue to pass good knowledge, up to date knowledge to the student.
Yeah, and they also need to, from time to time, review the curriculum. The world is changing, and then AI technology has taken the center stage. I think they need to review their curriculum and make sure that they're updating it with, as things are changing to reflect the current reality. I don't think they should keep pumping out graduates or graduating people every year degrees that they cannot really use, that has become obsolete. I think they should start looking for a way to incorporate AI into their studies. And I think Nigerian degrees needs to be more practical based. There's a lot of theories going on in schools. They bore you with theories. They bore you with a whole lot of gibberish, and then at the end of the day, people do not have a practical understanding or practical knowledge of what they are doing. I remember when I was doing a petroleum engineering in PTI, when we used to draw a whole drilling, they draw a whole drilling operation on the board, and instead of them to take us to maybe a drill site or maybe watch a video at the very least, but the teacher or the lecturer will be drawing wells, drawing rocks, and all of that stuff on the board, and which is a very poor way to learn. I think the teaching in Nigerian schools need to be more practical based. When you graduate, you have actual skill. You actually know what you did in school, rather than just talking about theory. And then when they bring that into you, you may not be able. I can bet you that there are a lot of people that study computer science, computer engineering, that can almost not operate computer because um, people are embezzling the money they're supposed to use to equip the schools. People are embezzling it. People, sometimes it could be a case, that, these politicians do not see reason to equip our schools because their children are not here to benefit from it. So I think those are some of the things that, they can look into. In order to better our schools, in order for us to be, I know we are competitive, but in order for us to be more competitive, and then when somebody graduates from any school in Nigeria, like I said yesterday, they should be able to go into the workforce in any country. They should be able to get a job in any country, in England, anywhere in the world, and then just go straight into the workforce, without having to prove yourself or take more exams or stuff like that. I think those are the things they need to look into. Thank you for listening, and thank you for your support, and we'll see you on the other side.
Thank you.